Gumboro is calling Dan Gaffney.
Mary Lou now in the WGMD newsroom. Good morning.
Good morning, Dan. Well, the sagging real estate market is part of the decline in revenue for the city of Lewis, and that could mean more money from your pocketbook by way of...
The goal of transportation projects is to keep roads and bridges safe. And Darrell Cole of DelDOT tells WGMD that the gas tax money you pay helps with a number of transportation improvement projects.
In Sussex County goes to the Route 26 project to 24.
And are you from this area?
No, I'm from Ohio.
Where?
Northern Ohio, Akron area, Akron, Cleveland. That's where I was born and raised.
My first pulpit was in East Liverpool.
Okay.
South
gas
East.
tax money
Yeah.
goes toward transportation projects, period. In Dover, on WGMD.
So you've traveled around? Is that normal travel?
Actually not.
No, I went through a long period where I was offended at people mentioning God at all. I would have been very offended, you know, as a young person if you were at my commencement and mentioning God. I said, this is, superstitious wacko trying to tell me how to
Well, I
think.
think there's a fundamentalism on both sides.
Well, this is how I would have felt as an atheist, a very fundamentalist atheist.
Right,
It's
and
probably-
I think that we don't want the fundamentalism of one side, nor the fundamentalism of the other side.
I'm a kind of laid-back atheist, so I sort of know where you're coming from.
Right. But, with hindsight, he has every right. He would have every right to mention God in the public sector. And I think a Christian has every right to mention Jesus.
Yeah, except for the fact that when it might be the individual Christian taking a turn at giving the prayer, but when it's the school or the local city council
I've already conceded, I agree with that.
Yeah.
But I do believe that elected bodies have the right to open with prayer, the prayer of their choice, as the individual whose turn it is to pray. And if you want to, if the district elects all Muslims and they have their type of prayer, they should be allowed to do it. And the same thing with an elected body the person happens to be Christian or non-Christian, Jewish, what have you. They have the right to do it.
Well, we have some examples. We had this Hindu believer who was trying to give a prayer in our Congress, and they were shouted down by believing Christians.
Right.
Why?
Because they're rude, and they have their own...
But also they believe that if you don't pray in the name of Jesus, then you're not really praying. And here I think one of the fundamentalisms, I will grant you there's a fundamentalism...
They shouldn't be shot down. I don't agree with that. But I'm not, as a Christian, responsible for other believers in the way they behave.
Gumboro is calling Dan Gaffney on 92.7 WGMD.
All right.
Talk of Del Napa.
All right, we want to see if the folks from Jews on First, which is a funny name to me, they're talking about who's on second, right? Jews
Well,
on...
that's it, exactly,
Yeah,
yes.
what's that?
Abbott and Costello.
Absolutely. Jews on First, they purport to be a website defending against the Christian right. Which,
What's the word purport about?
Well, yeah.
We are indeed,
Right.
we are indeed.
And so Jane Hunter is here, and Rabbi Chaim Beliak. He's from LA, she's from DC, and we have people that want to talk to you. Is that okay?
Great,
Are you done with
great.
your questions? They're interviewing me, actually. Do you have any more questions for me?
I think we had a great interview and we appreciate it greatly, and we're looking forward to talking with your listeners.
Okay, I believe you'll be able to hear these. If not, we have headphones, but I think you'll hear them.
Okay.
Hi, you're on the air. Hello.
Good morning. Well, you know what I think? Let's say I acquiesce to your guest position on the Indian River area. Why should my tax money be appropriated by the U.S. House of Representatives to prop up the Jewish state of Israel? Christian American tax money in direct, clear violation of the First Amendment, in that American money, an American appropriations bill, is in essence a law.
All right, let's find out.
Money is unlawfully going to support a Jewish state. Why?
We have our U.S. tax dollars from us as Jews and you as Christians going to support a number of countries that have confessional governments. I don't think,
So why should they? If taking this to its logical extreme, not just Israel, but other confessional governments, as you said. His point was a good question.
Well,
Interesting.
It's an interesting question. It's a little quirky because I think if you ask members of Congress, what they would say is that has more to do with our geostrategic position.
I understand.
than
How do you
our,
rationalize it, though, based on from Indian River to that, Rabbi?
Well, for one, when we talk about the issue of the First Amendment, we're talking about the United States itself. We're not talking about our foreign policy. Our foreign policy is made by the interests of America, and the interests of America have been understood over the last many years as coherent with helping the Jewish state.
You're on WGMB Radio. Go ahead, please.
This is deja vu. I was in high school when the first,
Go ahead, please.
well, I'm trying to figure out a nice way to say it. When the first prayer and Bible reading was excluded from American schools.
You were in high school at that time.
Yes. And now I'm listening to this, and if I let all my emotions drain from it and just use sense, and my thing is, in a time when our country needs to join together, this is just another divide. Instead of saying, yes, we are all equal, we can all do this, we can do that, it's a divide. We are on this side, and someone else is on that side, and another one's on that side. That is not the melting pot of America.
Well, I think here, no one has a problem with teaching the Bible from a non-confessional perspective. And indeed, the Bible in some ways is a book that brings us together and divides us. That's why we have all these churches
Why
and
don't we
synagogues.
focus on the bringing together part?
And here I think the bringing together is really about what happens in the rest of the day of school. Using religion as the only thing that brings us together is a mixing of nationalism and
I don't think
say-
she said the only thing that brings us together.
So I think we ought to recognize that religion is something we do primarily in our churches and synagogues. Our public schools are public, and one of the bitter experiences...
My
that-
belief goes with me everywhere, not just in my church.
Sure, but remember that our Constitution understood the danger of religion in the public square when it is not allowed to be...
I think they understood the benefit of it as well.
Yes, the benefit, and so it's a question of not the fundamentalism of one side or the other.
You guys never did answer my question about...
Which one?
You
Which
skirted
question?
my question
Well,
about the
let us
mentioning
take
of
it-
Jesus.
let us
The
take
word,
it-
the name Jesus. You skirted my question
Well,
on that
this is-
twice.
Not really, not really.
Maybe it's the rabbi.
You
who should
didn't want to
answer.
end up saying, no, you shouldn't be allowed to say it. I understand that.
What we're saying instead is it shouldn't come down to a question of being allowed or not. I think it would be greatly appreciated by Jews and others if Christians would understand that particular phrase says to us that we are essentially denying your belief set. And I think you could
As a
probably-
Christian, can I apologize to you both if you ever felt that way? Because if for you to feel excluded or harmed by mentioning the name Jesus would never be in my particular mindset.
Apology
So
accepted.
please,
Apology
please apologize,
accepted.
but understand also.
Let me
that-
apologize to you if you thought that by saying Jesus, you were excluding the idea of praying to God. Because when we say God, we get to include everybody.
You're on the air. Hi, everybody except the non-believers.
Hello.
Hi.
I'd like to know which brand of Judaism they adhere to, whether it be Reform or Orthodox, or I forget what the other is as well.
Yes. Rabbi?
Sure, I'm ordained as both a Reform rabbi and as an Orthodox rabbi.
I'd like to interject. There's a guy by the name of Dennis Prager who is a conservative
I know Dennis very well.
Orthodox Jew.
Dennis is not an Orthodox Jew. He doesn't claim to be.
Right.
Well, Jackie Mason,
All right. What are we got a list of everyone's favorite Jews. You're on WGMD.
Jesus is one of my favorite Jews.
Right. Mine too.
I'd like to know which Constitution you're reading when you're saying the Constitution warns against the involvement of church and everything else.
Right. It doesn't say that in the Constitution.
The Constitution forbids the government from establishing a religion. That means
And it also says that you can't prohibit the free exercise thereof.
Right.
And in my opinion only, when you're telling someone, you mention Jesus, that's a no-no, that's prohibiting his
It's
free
bad
exercise.
form. It's not.
Yeah, but you're prohibiting his free exercise.
No. The
From a
idea
free
of
speech
prohibition.
point.
Prohibition is not the issue. It's the
It
issue.
is with you?
No, I'm saying that it is bad form. It is bad manners.
So we want to legislate bad manners now?
No, I think we want to include people, especially we want to protect young people.
Right.
and we don't want.
It's come down to just bad form now, yeah.
Well, no.
Originally
I
it
don't
was
think
all
it-
Constitution, the
it
law,
is
now we're down to it's just
It
bad
is
form.
Constitution. Let's put it this way: we would really expect that just as you would not want a teacher to tell your children that believing in Jesus was a bad thing, we don't want a teacher to tell our kids that if you don't believe in Jesus, you're going to go to hell. And if you need to enforce that somehow, there is the Constitution that enables you to enforce inclusiveness and pluralism in our public institutions.
All right.
And see, now that's where everything went wrong, was when people started interpreting the Constitution as going that way. That's where our country is going wrong. Our Constitution was set up to include God in everything that we do. And then we have the secular world coming in there trying to reinterpret that the opposite way.
Right. Let's take another call. You're on the air. Go ahead, please.
Morning, Dan.
Hi.
I'm a little puzzled here. I think what they're actually trying to do, by coming on your radio show, they're actually telling you they don't want you as a radio show host to use the word Jesus, even though Jesus is my Savior. That's offensive to them, Bo. I got news for them.
I don't know.
They are offensive to me
All right.
by doing what they're doing.
All too much offense being taken. None of that's good. I'm not taking offense. You shouldn't take offense. Go ahead, Rabbi.
And we're certainly not trying to tell people what they should believe. We're saying that public schools are a special place. They're part of the government.
You're on 92.7 WGMD. Hi.
Hey, Dan, how you doing?
Good.
Brett here.
Hi, Brett.
2 or 3 calls ago, one of the ladies there made the statement that they didn't want a teacher telling a student that because they didn't believe in Jesus, they were going to hell. Okay?
Right.
That hasn't happened in American public schools on a broad basis for 50 years. Okay?
Right.
It's not the issue. The issue is movements of their nature, just like the lawsuit we went through and all the other things, do limit the expression of religion if, and almost only if, it relates to Jesus. That is consistent with the way that it's been attacked for the last, well, since Madeline Moreno era. And it's only gotten worse. And the issue is not...
I would consider this to be a pretty representative type of feeling among Christian callers. If I could, I'm not speaking for all callers here, but this feeling they're under attack is,
Well,
they were under attack in biblical writings, and I guess they feel still under attack today.
And with statements like what they said about the Constitution, prohibiting it doesn't. It protects the freedom of, and as you said, Dan, that's the issue. Yeah, it's the freedom of that religious expression, and the Constitution, and none of the organizations, none of the Christian organizations have tried to say the state religion is Christian.
This is not completely true. There are many activists and leaders on the Christian right who are very explicit about wanting our government to essentially establish their religion. All that we are saying here is that we're not saying that it's only when you mention Jesus that becomes a problem. We're saying there's a huge Christian majority in this country but the way that our government is set up, that does not mean that they get to use the agencies of the government, which we all support, to have their religion be reflected in situations where other religions, children especially of other religions, are present and participating and want to feel included and want to feel equal.
Well, it's obvious if you look at the state of our country and the state of our school system that we're not doing that because it's failing horribly. And certainly the people who may advocate a state religion are in the minority. And I would contest
Agreed.
that if the Christian is the majority, we need to do a better job of making sure that our opinions are respected and not diminished as they are time and time again by the ACLU and organizations that work those groups.
All right. Rabbi, thank you for calling, Rhett. And Rabbi?
Well, I think here the idea that Christianity is under attack, I think needs to be addressed. I think everyone recognizes that Christianity is one of the forces for good in this country, and I think that needs to be said. If it's not been,
Why do you think that is?
I
Why do you think Christianity is a force for good?
Because I believe that religion in general, when it is within its proper bounds and properly preached and taught, is a force for good. And I think that was recognized.
Any religion?
All religion. All religion. I think there is something called pathogenic religion, and on the edges of Christianity, on the edges of Judaism, on the edges of Islam, we find pathogenic religion. And one of the things that our Constitution was about was that it came after 100 years war, a 30 years war, which were about religion. And we said in this country, we're not going to have that. We're going to invite the open market of free religion. That means that if we have that open market, the government does not step in to say, my religion, because I'm the majority here, is what decides things. Everybody has minority rights, whether they are a minority here in Delaware or they're a minority wherever in New York City or wherever.
Forget all this issue. I'm just interested in talking to you as a rabbi. Personal stuff. What do you personally think when someone a Christian may witness to you about their Christianity? Has that ever happened to you?
Oh, sure, yeah. In general, my approach when people begin to witness to me and they know that I'm a rabbi,
right,
is to say that they don't respect Judaism. That is, there's an assumption here that Judaism...
You think they don't respect Judaism?
Right. In other words, there's an assumption that...
Like if I was witnessing you, you would think, like earlier I mentioned that I became a Christian or whatever. Do you think that meant I didn't respect Judaism?
You weren't witnessing to me. You were telling me about your experience.
You think I wasn't witnessing to you.
Right.
Little do you know, Rabbi, I was witnessing to you.
But in my first response is...
You know what I mean? I was.
If people come to my door,
yeah,
I have a response.
I'm not coming to your door. I'm just talking in conversation. We were out to lunch, talking about this issue, and I started talking about my Christian faith and what Jesus has done for me.
If you've listened to what it means to be a Torah-believing, faithful Jew, and there was an exchange, I would say that's wonderful. Yeah. We're equals meeting on equal ground. And here I would say that there's often an element of disrespect when Christians go out on their missionary work. Missionary work from the perspective of Judaism is a question of, do these people have a contact with God? And therefore it is inappropriate for a Jew to missionize, let's say, to a Christian or to a Muslim, because while we may say Judaism teaches us something and we learn from it and it informs our life and it gives us meaning, we would never say your form of believing God is incorrect or imperfect.
Another question I have, a personal question too, is do you feel that if a Christian is witnessing to you or evangelizing to you, whatever you'd like, do you feel that somehow that is a threat to your Jewish identity? In other words, were you aware that people can maintain their Jewish identity and be Christian at the same time? It is not about giving up their identity as a Jew.
I would actually use a New Testament verse to explain this.
I want to know how you feel.
Yeah, I'm going to use a New Testament verse to explain. None come to the Lord but through me. And here Christians need to accept that Muslims and Jews are already with the Lord, already with God. They don't need to come to the Lord.
Right.
The Christian way is conversion. That is, a Christian becomes a Christian by saying, I believe in Jesus,
Right.
and I come to God that way.
Right, that's
and,
right.
And so,
Because no man gets to the Father except through me. I agree.
except if you're already with the Father.
Now, the another question I have too about this is interesting to me. I think this is good dialogue. Do you?
I think this is wonderful dialogue.
Okay, great. You mentioned that
Could we do
Jesus,
it later in the day, though?
Jesus was one of your favorite Jews.
He is this very serious Jew, and not to understand Jesus in the Jewish context is to miss the history, the rich history.
Here's my question. Was Jesus, do you believe what he said? Or if you either believe or either he's a raving lunatic or he was saying the truth?
Well, I think...
Which is it?
I think it's not an either-or question.
Really?
No, because there is the Jesus of history and there is the Jesus that has been preached by churches. And the Jesus of history is a Jewish nationalist who fought the Roman imperial system.
Who made some amazing claims.
Who was in the Jewish tradition and used the Jewish tradition to make claims about the teachings of Judaism and that path to God.
His claims are to be believed or not believed. So
I would say for Christians they're to be believed. For Jews, the way to be faithful to God is through the Jewish path. For Muslims, the way to be faithful to God is through the Muslim path.
I'm only talking about what he said. Like either you can
He doesn't
imagine
have an exclusive lock on the truth. Christians claim that
Jesus doesn't.
Jesus doesn't have an
Okay,
exclusive
then-
lock on the truth.
Well, you know, like when people are making claims, like that, you know, I'm the Son of God, I am here to fulfill.
I don't think Jesus ever claimed to be the Son of God. Do you think so?
Well, yeah, but
Okay.
you know, if he makes that claim, either you believe it, either like, wow, he was telling the truth. It's historically documented in the New Testament writings, or no, it's wrong.
No,
But, and you said he was
The Bible and the New Testament writings are the history of the faith of people. It is, I think, a mistake, from my perspective, to understand the Bible in a literal fashion. It is how people who experienced the giving of the Ten Commandments, who experienced the exodus from
But you said it's
Egypt.
okay to believe it if you're a Christian. Like, I wasn't born a Christian, you know, I had to become one.
That's right. I think that's what's unique about Christianity. You have to become one. And one of the things that I think is clear about how people become Jews or Muslims is mostly you're born one. Mostly you're born one and you're indoctrinated.
And you would
through-
always be one, even if you accepted Christ.
Not really. No, I think that
Well,
it's
you know,
in a democratic
that-
society. If a Jew
The
says,
Jews for Jesus folks claim you are, you know.
yeah, well, I don't accept their claim. I think that
You don't believe them?
I don't believe them. No, but I
Really?
will. Say, I
You
will,
think they're lying?
I think that when a Jew says, I have changed my mind, we need to accept that, even though it pains me that a person would miss the riches of Judaism. They have a right to make that decision. When a person says, I believe in Judaism, and I was born a Christian, and now I believe in Judaism, they need to be taken at their word. That's a part of that free exercise of religion that we enjoy.
All right. Talking with Rabbi Chaim Beliak. I believe I got that right.
Very nice.
I don't know. It's early for me too, Rabbi. And you're on WGMB at 7:29. Hello.
Good morning, Dan.
Hi there.
Good morning, Rabbi.
Good morning.
Well,
And let's not forget Jane Hunter.
Hi, I'm here
She's
too.
working the camera.
morning, Miss Hunter. I've not been listening the whole time. I just got out of the shower. What I'm hearing...
If you're just tuning in, by the way, this is not about why the rabbi came in. I found myself just personally interested in, you know, this whole idea of I take offense, you know, I'm offended at such and such. And I wanted to talk to the rabbi on a personal level about his personal feelings so that hopefully I can gain some kind of insight into, you know, these offenses that you say you have when people say certain things. Just wanted to understand. Go ahead.
Well, what I wanted to ask was, does the rabbi believe in absolute truth? Like, for example, if you get struck by lightning, you will be hurt. Or if you get hit by a car, you have to go to the hospital. Those kind of things. There's got to be one truth. I mean, there are many religions, there are many beliefs, but there's got to be only one truth. You know, if you hold your hand over fire, you're going to get burned. So
one thing has to be right.
For truth to have any definite, in terms of just simply a word, for it to have any meaning, it has to have some definition, right?
We can believe anything.
Well, let's let the rabbi answer that.
Well, first of all, let me say that
You're listening to Let's Grill the Rabbi on his faith. No, you're not.
I'm
just teasing.
actually
I'm
very-
teasing you.
I'm very happy. You know, I don't know how many rabbis you've had on your program.
Right.
I may be the first.
We
so-
don't ask when they call. I don't know.
So it's a privilege, and I appreciate your generosity and time and spirit. I believe that there may be something called absolute truth that is not available to what humans can know. In other words, the idea that somehow I, as a human being, know the absolute truth is, I think, to commit one of the greatest sins of religion, and that is to stand in the place of God.
Listen, we're almost out of time, and I've got to let you go. I'd like to sit here and talk to you all morning. But just a final question, back to the issue that brought us here. What do you think was gained, Jane? What do you think was gained, from your point of view, in the actual settlement of the lawsuit that you didn't have before?
I think that the most
Specific.
important thing, leaving aside the families and their individual struggles,
Right.
which is one thing that was obviously a good thing to have settled, the fact that
Although I
Jewish
don't think it
people-
settled it. They're still having struggles.
Well,
You know, but anyway, go ahead.
Jewish people in this district, Muslim people in this district, Hindu people in this district now can send their children to school knowing that there is a new level of appreciation for what it feels to be an excluded minority,
But
and knowing that the school is there to include your child as one of the children in the district schools, not as a singled out minority.
In
That's
terms
a
of
very
specific,
important thing.
in terms of specific ruling, is there anything specific ruling that you think was a benefit?
Indeed, I do. I think the prayer issue in the classroom, the Bible study during the school day, that having those issues now made to comply with the Constitution very important.
I think anytime we grow in sensitivity and understanding of our fellow human being, we've achieved something, and I hope that that's what we've done.
Me too. I hope it's a two-way sensitivity as well.
Yes.
All right, and I hope you believe me when I think when I say to you that when people most often when they mention Jesus in a prayer, they're not doing it to offend you.
I'd like to believe it.
I hope you do.
Yeah.
You know, consider it.
Thank you.
Consider it. Thank you. 7:33 WGMD. This is the talk of Delmarva.
News continues.
You've been.
Hold this for a while, my hands tired.
Gumboro is calling. Dan Gaffney on 92.7 WGMD.
All right.
Talk